What's the worst way you have caught someone cheating? My long-term girlfriend changed her Facebook profile pic to her with another guy. We'd been together for about 5 years. I was totally thrown for a loop. That was about 9 years ago. She's still with this guy, and I'm pretty sure she tells people that she was single when they started going out. This happened to me around 4.5y, except I was the girl, and I had to see her profile picture, comments on my BF/his page, of them too, when it still said we were in a relationship on Facebook. He then took her out while we were still dating on my credit card, thinking I wouldn't notice, just to be sure he was making the right choice. Decisions were made, lol. It was a hurtful cyclone of emotions, confusion, betrayal, and rage. About 3 years ago now, still aches. I was busy packing up our belongings to move from a rental to the house that my fiancé and I were buying. He was supposed to be out golfing with his buddies and would be home later in the evening. I had already packed up most of our kitchen. It was nearing dinner time and I knew that he would be hungry after golf, so I placed a to-go order for both of us at his favorite restaurant. When I arrived at the restaurant to pick up our food, he was sitting in a booth on the same side as the other girl. They were snuggled up close. He was kissing her cheek and they were sharing a plate of food. It obviously wasn't their first date. I walked over to the table and introduced myself to the girl as his fiancé, and the girl actually had the same first name as me. She got really upset with me and threatened me with physical violence because they were in love and I needed to leave him alone so that they could be happy together. I walked out of the restaurant with tears running down my face, left the to-go food behind, and basically broke down sobbing in the parking lot. He came out a few minutes later and told me that I needed to go back home and let him finish his date and we would talk about it later. WTF. When he got home that night, all of my stuff was gone, and so was I. The fact that I had already been packing for the move made it really easy. I stayed with friends until I was able to close on the house that we were going to buy together, all by myself. I got roommates to help cover the mortgage that I had originally planned on splitting with him, and even though it was difficult for a while, I managed to push through, and I have done okay for myself. He, on the other hand, not so much. He ended up with the other girl that had my same name and they both kind of suck at life. They lost the condo that they bought to foreclosure. They both can't hold down steady jobs, and they break up and get back together constantly because he's always cheating on her. Her work phone was actually a working it phone. She had the same passcode for all of her electronic devices. I knew something was up when I watched her respond to a quick email. No one smiles and acts the way she did when doing that task. I came home to my apartment after landing a big promotion, only to find my wife ducking my boss in our bed. I left her right then and there, packed up what I had, and went on a journey of self-discovery where I learned a lot about myself and met the actual girl of my dreams. I was about to tell her I loved her for the first time and also explain that I was technically still married when my wife unexpectedly showed up drunk trying to win me back. The new girl smacked me when she learned I was married and left, so I consulted my sassy group of friends about how I could win her back. A divorce settlement and a few over-the-top romantic gestures later, and me and my second wife finally got our happily ever after. And even better, my best friend also ended up with my second wife's best friend, while my ex-wife ended up falling in dog shit and crying last time I saw her. It was hilarious fun for the whole family. Not me, but I worked with a guy whose wife swapped out their wedding picture with one of her and another guy. Then she showed it to him and told him that they were and she wanted a divorce, so yeah, and the two guys were really close friends up until that point, or at least they acted like they were. I won't go into detail here, but I was the one in our family who found out that my dad was cheating on my mum and broke the news to her, me being too young to really understand the gravity of the situation. Not that it would have changed much if I had known any better. I like to think I would have still told her. What followed was long and horrible to witness as a child. Divorce process, and the worst part of all was just seeing my mum in constant tears. If it wasn't from being upset about what was going on, it was tears of stress from having to go through it all. Certainly enough to put me off ever even thinking about cheating on my spouse. I suspected her cheating for a long while. Little things didn't add up at all, and my gut feeling said things were very wrong. So I finally had enough and decided to leave work early and come home because a friend told me a certain truck was there. So I came home and hoped for the best and expected the worst, and the worst is what I found. It was the only time I swore at her, "You ducking little b," and I guess I'm not crazy after all for thinking you might be cheating. The only reason he did not go to the hospital was because my girls were in the next room sleeping, and going to jail was not going to help anything. I was looking on my girl at the time, laptop to post a cute pic of us on Instagram. Instead I see a picture of her giving head pop style. Dumb girl didn't turn off iCloud sharing to her laptop, all while she was upstairs babysitting my niece and nephew. I was devastated, couldn't breathe, and tried to leave, but I had to stay calm because of my niece and nephew. One of the worst days of my life, and I'm still shook about it. Sometimes I get caught in a rut, but I'm trying to get better. That was about 5 to 6 years ago. There had been a couple of weird moments with this girl. She had gotten a few phone calls at really weird times and dealt with them by basically hiding her phone screen. Once she was showing me her phone screen and kinda panicked to close a Facebook Messenger conversation that popped up. When raising concerns, she did the whole "I'm an open book" thing and gave me her phone password. I wasn't the type to want to go through her phone, especially when I knew her exes did the same. One of them once messaged me through her account saying to back off. The final straw was when she was adamant we did something together, and she basically tried to gaslight me into believing it happened. I checked her phone that night, had to see her weird text role plays with her clingy friend, seeing she was having him stay over all the time. Then in the next conversation, the violent ex she supposedly wasn't talking to and her had been seeing each other regularly, with messages from her of how much she loves him. A conversation with a coworker of hers was probably the worst, as it was them working out a time behind his girlfriend's back to try out some new BDSM shit. On my very first Mother's Day I had this gut feeling that something was going on, so I went through his phone and found everything. All the pictures, texts, plans to take our daughter away from me and be with her. All of it. Safe to say it has pretty much ruined Mother's Day for me. Had to leave a party early and left my GF there and told her that I would pick her up in the morning as it was her friend's house. Girl went by in the morning and looked into her friend's room to find her. Wasn't there. Thought about where else she could be and got an odd feeling in my gut. I opened her friend's brother's room and there she was, asleep in bed with him, naked. We were 17. He was 25. I said WTF. He said chill man. It's all just games, in a sleepy half amused voice. I then picked up his shit 12 inches black and white TV and proceeded to smash it over his head and left. My ex had a birthday party a few years ago. He invited his coworkers and me. I helped him clean his place, which was a disaster. As the guests started to arrive, I noticed they seemed only interested in talking about work. I'm pretty introverted, and I didn't know what to say with all of the job talk, so I started getting uncomfortable. They sat down to play some board game, and didn't have room for me to join, so I decided to go home. The more I sat at home, the more annoyed I got over having helped clean and prepare the place for the party, bringing gifts for my ex, and then being pretty much excluded the whole time I was there. He also had never bothered to contact me the whole night to see how I was doing. I decided to go back to his place and take back a bottle of booze I'd given him and get my other things I had there. I arrived and noticed a vehicle with out-of-state plates on it. I knew my ex had her FWB from there, but surely she didn't sleep over unless she had been too drunk to drive. I went in expecting to find her asleep on the couch. She was not on the couch. I went to my ex's bedroom and knocked on his door. I heard some whispering, and he came out, closing the door quickly behind him. He wanted to go to Starbucks with me to get me out of his place and give his FWB time to get out of his place, but she was still there when we got back, and I was furious. I decided to talk to her to find out what my ex had told her about our relationship, and it turned out he had told her he was just ducking with me and he didn't consider us a couple at all, which was not what he had told me. Far from it. Not proud of this, but I ended up getting into a screaming match and throwing my Starbucks drink at his door. After that, I found out his coworkers started calling me retard because I hadn't talked much at his party. A lovely bunch all around. Hopefully they all have caught incurable STDs by now. Got any similar stories? Leave it in the comments below.